Okay, so immediately after the lunch session, it's very difficult to actually sit there and speak to people. So I would rather move around. I have taken permission from my co-panelists to move around here. Before, I think you can run the presentation so that. So my introduction has already been given. I am Alok Vijan. I work for 26 years with the government of India in various capacities, and primarily my role was to create a team of cyber warriors for the country. I entered into the national security game way back in 2006, and till 2022, I was there with them. Prior to my joining the national security establishment, I was with Reserve Bank of India as a direct recruited management cadre officer. I served Reserve Bank for 9 years, and unfortunately, I am also a Chinese linguist. So if you see my profile, actually, I'm quite a confused man. I studied in a Fauji school. I never joined Fauj. I studied physics in university, Delhi University. I did nothing about physics ever. I studied management at FMS Delhi University. I did nothing about management. And I entered into the field of computers, cyber, and hardcore offensive cyber. That means I don't talk about security at all. I only talk about breaking the systems, understanding the systems, and recreating new systems. So that is my name to fame. I have played around with hacking community right at the grassroots level, and probably that was my biggest achievement that I can think of in the last 26 years. So before they switch on my presentation, I don't know what's happening. Since the subject was a little new for me, it was like relationship with a foreign nation or our neighbors. So I again use technology for doing that, and I mean, everyone uses Chat GPT and others, but in the process, I actually created my own system which can give me my answer. So I have a site where I create retrieval augmented generative AI, and I started asking it questions. That what are the questions? What should I cover? The first question, or what should I cover in my presentation? So it said that, okay, bring out the historical relationship, historical connects. तो मेरे को अचानक याद आया, बचपन में हम पढ़ते थे काबुली वाले. You remember? Anyone can remember that काबुली वाला कहानी? Okay, so काबुली वाला आता है and he brings in all those dry sweets and all that. So connect started from there. Then we read about, we talk about payment systems, we talk about digital currencies, we talk about a lot of currencies, barters and things. So where did it originate? It actually started, when I started reading history, then I realized that it was Kushan dynasties and all that. So that was the historical connect. Then came the religious context. When it came to, you're not able to switch on my presentation? Then I'll have to keep making stories. Okay. So after having seen all these historical connects, then I realized that what now? In the current context, what do we have to share with our neighborhood? When we talk about South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the neighbors around us. And of course, when we talk about neighbors, though China also falls in our neighborhood itself, but then we will keep them a little out of the context here, though they belong to the South Asian community, but then we'll keep them out. We will address rest of the people. That the countries, the 16 countries that have been listed here, we'll only talk about that. So, what is the percentage of share, the global trade, that these 16 countries actually enjoy? Anyone can take a wild guess? Any wild guesses? What is the global trade percentage of these 16 countries in the world? Again, the Chat GPT, my own version of cyber think tank gave me this answer. It comes to around 12% of the total global trade. And what is the kind of population that you have in these 16 countries? It's almost 28 to 29% of the global population that is there on this part of the world. What is the area that we cover? The land area? Again, it is around 12%. Now, why I'm giving you the statistics is that I want to tell you that the share of involvement of these 16 countries When you compare it with the global dynamics, it's hardly anything. So where do you stand and what we need to do? The problem is about plenty. We are, considered as one of the poor side of the world. So what can we do? Because for developing, you need money. It's like money pulls money, and you need money. And we all are not in a position to actually spend too much of money. We also have issues of implementation of certain things. Should I come and correct it? I had logged in. I don't know what's. You sorry? No, I am here. Okay. So the question is, what do we have actually? What is our strength? The strength is our people. We have got huge sets of people with good amount of skill sets. And this is what we need to channelize. I was just talking to the ambassador just during the lunch. The question of implementation. You asked a question of implementation, who will implement? The problem is that all these countries that we talked about, all the 16 countries we talked about, we have very limited resources when it comes to handling the soft power. Though India has developed like a giant when it comes to the softer part of the world, that software technologies or human skill sets, we are quite in numbers now. What about the others? And why we have not been able to make a mark when it comes to soft power is because we have spread too thin. We have spread so thin that we want to do everything ourselves. When it comes to electronics, we want to fabricate electronics here. When it comes to development of software, we want to develop software here itself. When it comes to cyber security, we want to do it here. When we want to actually set up data center, we want to do it here. And each of these countries, each of these 16 countries have spread like this. They have spread very thin. Yeah, okay. So my presentation is now here. So I have already talked about this historical connect. The oldest historical connect comes from the trade routes, that Silk Road, what we talked about. Linguistics. This part of the world has very interesting linguistic chains. All the languages in this part of the world has actually emerged from Sanskrit. Many of these have still used the words which are deployed in Sanskrit. That's being used. Cultural, of course, this is something which my earlier speaker also covered that we need to have a very different kind of a cultural connect, and we do have a cultural connect between all these nations. Political, most of the political systems have actually emerged from this part of the world. Whether you call it democracy, whether you call it, any form of government, the payment system, the money, the barter system, everything has come from this part of the world. This part of the world also has got great things to celebrate. We have produced the best of the mathematicians in the world. Though we have produced best of the mathematicians in the world, we hardly have a say in cryptology. We do not stand anywhere when it comes to cryptography or cryptanalysis or such kind of things. Why is it that? We will have to actually do a little introspection on this, that why our mathematicians who have acclaimed to be the best in the world have never come out with an algorithm or a crypto technique which has actually caught the eyes of the world. That we need to look at it. Is there some kind of a sabotage happening, or is there some kind of, because I fail to accept this fact that India doesn't have the resources. We have the resources to actually keep our people intact here, but somehow it doesn't happen. We have religious chains again, the Buddhism and Sufism again is another one. Next, please. So this I have talked about. 28% of the global population on 7.97 to 9% of total global land area. That is what we have. I'm talking about all the 16 countries that are listed in the list. I'm talking about them. Global trade share is approximately 11. Back, please. Global trade share is 11 to 12%. Global imports that we do in this part of the land is 12 to 13%. Now, when it comes to 12 to 13%, a big chunk of demand side is met from this part of the world. Global export 11 to 12%. High tech production percentage. When we talk about anything which is high tech, like high cost, which requires more of time, symmetric technological development, we are hardly there. We are 9% of the global value of trade. Soft skills, 55% of IT outsourcing is in India, 15 to 20% in Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia. And we are only doing, if you ask me about the scale of operations, out of a 10 scale of operation, we are doing a quality job at the level of 3, not beyond that. So whenever you want to actually get into the real hardcore mutton, you are not there. You are not there at all. Next, please. So the problem is, where do we leverage? What are the leverage point that we as a group together, or we as nations together in this part of the world can actually offer to the world is living by the asymmetry. Let's not talk about the symmetrical development of aspects in the software power, because it requires huge amount of investments that probably we are not prepared to do it as of now. But then small investment, asymmetric operations that we can do, it gets into this kind of a thing. Now, the beauty of this, why I have listed out data center as an asymmetric advantage, is because of the temperature extremity that we have in this part of the world. There are places in Central Asia which have got very extreme temperatures, which is very hot and very cold. These are very fertile grounds, and very apt placements of data centers can actually happen in those kind of area which has got lesser temperature, or who are on the lower side of the temperature. Because data centers, the maximum consumption is not about setting up a data center, but it is about the power that it consumes to actually stand itself. So the cooler places have got better chances of setting up of a data center. So this is what we need to exploit. DevOps, of course, India is there now when it comes to development and operations kind of a thing. We are the largest outsourcing hub for the rest of the world. But again, we have spread too thin. There are certain kinds of jobs only that come to India, not all kinds of job, not the sensitive, not the good quality job. It's only, lowly kind of a job where more of human intensive work is required. That is the kind of thing that comes to us. Cryptography is something which I am very, very, positive about and gaga about it, because, at least I have a couple of friends from places like Russia who have been excellent and brilliant when it comes to cryptography, but somehow they have got lost in the overall perspective. So this is what we need to revive. Cryptography is going to be a big game. AI and robotics, again, this is a very asymmetric game where only the brain matters. How much of brain you can deploy, and again, it's a factor of mathematics. So this is where we need to leverage our strength on development of AI algorithm. Very sorry to say and state this fact that I have been into this game of robotics and artificial intelligence for almost like a decade now. And trust me, we do talk about as a country that we are very savvy about this artificial intelligence and machine learning. And every organization, every university, every college is actually having a course on AI and AI as of now, machine learning and all that. But again, we are not developing our own algorithm. What we are doing is we are using one of the ready-made algorithms which are there on Aracadskate or any other places, and downloading the entire thing and creating a project out of it. So we are using, again, we are probably committing an error where we are going with the existing algorithm and doing things. One thing which I have not touched, I thought I'll speak to all of you. Are you following this pager attack that has happened on Iran and Israel war? How many of you are following it up? So what do you find? What is that? Probably we need to look at it in a greater depth. Is the use of technology that we are blindly doing from the West. This is where we need to have our own systems to actually protect against such kind of thing. It was an excellent example of a supply chain attack, where your supply is getting moderated or modified or corrupted to cause a kinetic effect in war. This has been something which has been tried for the first time in Israel-Iran war, and now this kind of a thing will start following in. I don't know whether I have been able to convey what I wanted to convey, but there is a reason when we have to look at all the electronics that we use today, all the mobile phones, what you hold in hand today, right now, iPhones. How many iPhone users here? How many iPhone users? iPhone is made in which country? Which country? Okay, so, okay. Please, I will not suggest that you should open up your iPhone, but you open it up, everything is made in China. All the chips are made in China, all the motors made in China, everything. So we need to look at these very small components that we tend to neglect or maybe use it just because it is cheap. Before ending my I think there is nothing ahead. Please just move ahead. One more. Yeah, so these are the opportunities. This is my second last slide. Growing need for digital transformation and cloud services is going to give us an opportunity to actually do something worthwhile in this field. And how we can do it collectively is not by doing all by ourselves or all by one country or the other. We need to have a synergic approach in actually setting up this entire thing, because these are multiple components of the entire cyber domain that has to be looked after. Increased demand for data centers. Of course, I have spoken about the data centers. Global electronics and semiconductor manufacturing. Positioning post-Chinese lack of global trust. Now, when China is actually exiting this field of electronics, though they are not exiting, but they are made to exit out of this field of electronics, there is a huge void that is going to get created in this field of electronics. And this is where we need to leverage our strengths and even maybe investments to pour into such kind of a developmental electronics. Green and renewable energy sourcing. Again, we are quite well positioned to actually look at this greener technologies in this part of the world, because we are not vertical, we are actually horizontal in our spread. Tourism, cultural exports, of course, Central Asia, including the northern part of India and a lot of other places are beautiful places of for tourism. But unfortunately, we have been, this part of the world has been actually converted into a play zone for the West, and it has always been disturbed because of whatever reason, maybe driving the commerce through some other methods. Next, please. Okay, so I finished my presentation like this because, and though I must commit to you that this was not my subject actually. I don't talk on international relations, and thanks to Dr. Ramakant, who has now introduced me to the subject. I'm a hardcore techie and I can talk tech, but this was nothing but, there was no tech in this. So thank you. I'll be ready to take on question answers at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Me to this seminar or conference. So the topic of, today is about India's soft power, how it can be utilized in enhancing relations with Southeast Asia. Now we all know that there are so many similarities between India and so many Southeast Asian countries, culturally, religiously, traditionally, and our relations go back to centuries. Even in Islamic countries like Indonesia, we have so many similarities, like religious, like Garud. You can find emblem. The national emblem is Garud, which is basically our related to our Ramayana. And I will also say, I mean, it's also a fact that Southeast Asian countries are very not far away from us. Their distance wise also they are located very close by. But at the same time, the observation is that our relationship with Southeast Asian countries is not as good as maybe we have with Russia or maybe America and maybe even the Arab countries, West Asian countries, Gulf countries. So that has been a very intriguing thing. In fact, what I noted was in till 2008, India, I guess, was not paying too much attention to Southeast Asian countries. It was only after that recession or the financial crisis that hit the West that India started taking ASEAN countries. I mean, looking at ASEAN countries with more focus in terms of increasing economic and trade, economy, trade, culture. Uh, uh, because if we note at that time, the bilateral trade with, although we had ASEAN, which has been in existence for last 30 years, and we have been holding these ASEAN India summits regularly. I think we last had the 21st summit was held recently. Despite that, our trade, bilateral trade with ASEAN countries was very low at I think $39 billion in 2008. It was only after this financial crisis when that hit West, the Manmohan Singh government started giving that policy of look east, and I I guess it was then that more attention was paid on enhancing relations with Southeast Asian countries. And in 2011, then FTA was signed, free trade agreement, and it has given some gains. It has resulted in a substantial jump in trade. Now our trade stands at $130 billion. But I guess there is still more to do, because now since we are talking about soft power India has so much of advantage, as we say, like it was mentioned about movies, or we have software power. Not only software power, then we have movies, like we have TV serials, culture, and all that. In fact, I was I noticed that uh, we had that ICCR, which was which was actually tasked to engage countries in cultural events and enhancing cultural engagements. The budget has been reduced. It was very surprising. And if we compare, I mean, China, since we are competing, my feeling is that actually we have not been enhancing relations with Southeast Asia because of the China factor. Because China, although India is also a power, but China refuses to accept that. Let us face this. And China considers Southeast Asia as its backyard. And I guess we need to overcome and maybe bypass that China factor uh, by going to the soft power and software and cultural diplomacy. In fact, Bollywood diplomacy, movie diplomacy, if you find how it has helped India capture the mood in so many other countries. Our movies, like Russia, or maybe I have been to even Afghanistan. Afghanistan, some people are so fascinated about India, and they love India so much because of our movies and our TV serials they've been watching. I myself seen, so they are so engrossed. I'm talking about before the Taliban era. Now Taliban has all shut down that thing, and not only Afghanistan. I'll say even Pakistan. Pakistan has a lot of so much of influence of Indian soft power, like in these movies. They are so hit. Our songs play in their marriages, in their functions, and it captures their imagination. You talk to those women and all; they will be all impressed by how Indian women dress and how Indian women talk. Then you ask them, how do you know that? They'll say, हमने फिल्मों में देखा है, या सीरियल्स में देखा है, साड़ी अच्छी लगती है. So that is how impact the soft power can, how much impact soft power can have, even in countries which are considered enemy countries like Pakistan, which sees India as an enemy. But despite that, they have this uh, huge influence of the soft power. So my feeling is that we need to go all out. Uh, if we take the example of China, how China spends so much of money on this cultural and other activities, how China encourages, even in India, how much money they spend in teaching people in Mandarin in India, or how much they spend, how much money they spend at home to teach people Hindi. So many people know Hindi, because that is why they want to have an impact. And since China considers Southeast Asia as its backyard, they won't like any competition there of like India competing and having engagement which is maybe not to their uh, up to their which is not to their liking. So I mean, we that is why I'm stressing on the fact that soft power, like soft power means, I include soft power, I mean this software power, like we are a giant in software, and we must go all out. And like countries like Taiwan and all that, we have there are so many linkages, or maybe Thailand, Vietnam, all these countries, we should go all out and spread our tentacles there, so that we can have an influence, and maybe and that will also help us increasing trade and engagement, other things otherwise, and balancing also the influence that China has on these countries. And I will not go too much beyond. I want to finish it fast. So I think if we use our soft power with more force and more aggression, although we are also using this military and other things, but I don't think that is working. That will work because of China's aggressiveness in South Asia, South China Sea and the region. So soft power will be the best way to bypass China and have an impact, have a better engagement, high level engagement. I mean, enhanced engagement with all these ASEAN countries, which will also reflect in increasing bilateral trade also for benefit of both sides. Thank you.